Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Flannel panel today. I am Cy Kellett, your host. We've got Joe Heschmeyer, apologist, Chris Check, president of Catholic Answers. And we're all wearing our flannel shirts. When the three of us get together in our flannel shirts, what do? We talk about the news of the day from a Catholic perspective, and that is what we are going to do today. I've kind of structured the day today. I've structured the 2 hours. We're going to talk about good news, more good newsy stuff the first hour, and more cranky, critical stuff the second hour. Because I feel personally that the cranky, critical stuff makes for better radio. So I want to make you stick around for the second hour. Joe, first of all, Joe Heschmeyer, welcome. Thanks for being here. And thanks for remembering to wear a flannel shirt.
It's my pleasure. And I like that you're just laying your cards on the table as a bad person.
As a bad person for making people wait.
You're just like, I'm going to profit off of your discontent.
Yes, exactly. Right. Well, it's we're gonna work our way up to. Well, I'll be honest with you. What we're working our way up to is another National Public Radio quiz. That's right.
We can call it working our way down if you want to.
Yes, that's actually what it is. Working our way down
and...
to a National Public Radio quiz. Also here, Chris Check, president of Catholic Answers, in a very fine flannel. Hello, Chris Check.
Cy, it sounds to me as if we're saving the cranky news for the second hour, we don't need Joe until the second hour then.
Joe, take a break. We're going to just talk about happy stuff.
I'll be the fly in the ointment on all of your nice stuff.
Actually, I don't know. We have a mad scientist who works here now, Luke Bender.
Yes.
He is a wonderful mad scientist. Of
emphasis on mad.
Yeah, we love him, and everybody likes Luke. You can't not like the guy, but he's one of those people who knows how all the technology works. He's a computer scientist, and he's going to get us popular on YouTube. He's going to make us even more popular than we are now. I've told him I would like to be. This is my standard for his success. You two tell me if this is a good standard. I would like to be so famous that I'm uncomfortable in airports. What do you think of that standard?
Or how about this? So famous that Hallow calls you and asks you to pray the rosary out loud.
I don't know if I'll ever reach that level of fame.
You and...
But, you know, we got to we're constantly thinking of how do we reach a wider audience? How do we share what we do here with a wider audience? And Luke is great at it. But he made a video from our last flannel panel where we did a National Public Radio quiz it was hilarious. I don't know how else to say it. But I don't know if you saw it, Chris. Luke's cut of it. We're not in it. It's all Joe Heschmeyer. Oh. It's just Joe.
I like him so much already.
Cracking jokes at the expense of National Public Radio, and they're good. They were good.
I have not seen it. I need to see this.
And
I had a joke I didn't use earlier because I didn't want to interrupt you, but I would feel bad if I didn't try to force it in, even though it's no longer timely.
Oh, definitely force it, Joe.
When you were talking about the standards of success, and Chris said they should be Hallow reaching out to you to pray the rosary, I wanted to say, then hallowed be thy aim.
Oh, Joe, is that a joke? I don't know if that's a joke. I think that's part of a personal problem you have where you can't stop.
Yes, it's a compulsion.
Thinking of puns and wordplay.
Cy, you and I were talking about this the other day, that we think it actually is an affliction of Joe's he's not responsible for.
It's an affliction of Joe that doesn't afflict him. It afflicts everybody else.
It's true.
All right, so the good news. Let's start with some good news. If we're going to talk about news of the world, Luke Coppin. And when I say that name, first of all, how do you feel when I say that name, Luke Coppin?
Yeah, I'm pleased
journalist.
that he is doing the work that he's doing. I think it's also the name of a soccer player. Am I wrong about that? Isn't there a Luca Coppin?
Wait, let me go through the list of soccer players I know.
This is America.
I have no idea, Joe. Yeah. I'm never going to know.
Yeah.
Do people memorize the names of soccer players?
This is America.
That's such a fair...
Oh, John Brasillo looks so mad in there.
Do you know what?
He loves soccer.
I told you what my friend said, the best description of soccer.
No.
It's the metric system in short pants.
John is fuming. Don't turn around and look. He is fuming right now. He loves soccer. Yeah, like you go through airports now, you know how there used to be baseball games and football games playing? Now it's soccer games playing. And it's from places no one's ever heard of. Like, have you heard of a city called Manchester, England? Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I have, and apparently no one would want to go there.
Well, they have a very good kicking team. What do you call those?
They have a couple. They've got Man
Socceroons,
City and Man United.
Or what do you call them? They have. Oh,
Squads.
Okay.
Do you know something as obscene as the salaries are for major league players here in the United States,
Yeah.
they're nothing compared to the obscene sums that
I don't know why
soccer
anyone
players.
studies. Just become an athlete. What does anybody study anything for? It's amazing. Like Formula One. I
I
saw.
hope no one is listening to this show.
No, this is
a
a kids-
child discerning their future and saying, "Oh,
Stop studying, kids. Get out there and play more
Cy
ball.
Kellett told me to tear my meniscus or whatever it's called.
If you study really hard, maybe you can be an accountant for a sports player and make a small fraction of the money that they make.
You can make 15% of what a sports player makes.
That'd be a lot of money.
It would, right? All right. I almost gave out the phone number. No, I want to get to the good news. And I said the name Luke Coppin because the Pillar the Pillar has an interesting approach to journalism. They do what I would call, and I'm using. It's called. I think it's called fact-based journalism. It's an interesting way to do it because I think complaining and fussing and having a panel of people with arrested development debating at a teenage level, that's real journalism. But
I don't know if you're trying to attack us personally, but this feels a little close to home.
No, they do a good. And Luke Coppin. I don't know the guy. I've never met the guy.
He's actually
but
from England. He probably does.
He's from England. Oh
I
shoot! I probably just made him
He
mad.
prefers
He
soccer.
might know the answer about whether there's a Luca Coppin soccer player.
He probably
probably
prefers
would know.
soccer. Maybe he's from Manchester.
Well, Luke Coppin does this weird thing where he just breaks down the numbers, and sometimes it's heartbreaking. Like he did. Do you remember? Well, I know you, Chris, remember this one. A few years ago, he studied baptism rates in some American cities.
Right, compared to funeral rates or something. Or,
And it was frightening how few Catholic children were getting baptized.
there's another guy who does the demography work for.
Stephen Bullivant, also of England.
Yeah.
Oh, does he for the Pillar?
Yeah. No. Darren said it.
Say it, Darren.
Brandon Hodge.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm confused. Maybe I put all this under the banner of Luke.
Well,
Coppin,
Luke
I'm
and
thinking
Luke
this-
and JD are the grand patriarchs of the Pillar, right?
No.
What do you call them?
No, Luke and JD.
Yeah. Ed Condon.
We're, this
okay.
is the worst conversation. Or moving on. Let's get to the
Well,
story. we wanna get-
Condon sounds like Coppin.
Yeah, that's right. Condon does.
Oh,
sound-
Condon's
that's-
from England.
No.
Yes.
No, Luke Coppin is from England. I've
Wait,
got all of their bios
I have
in
to
front
move
of
on
me.
from this.
Guys,
This is
the
humiliating
Pillar is
our
Ed Condon is
entire.
from Washington, D.C., which I'm fairly sure is in the United States.
No, he used to live.
Is
He
Washington-
lives
Or he
in
at least was
D.C.
in D.C.,
He
I don't
lives
know
in
if he's-
D.C., but he's from England.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I'm moving on now. There was a brief period where Washington D.C. was England. They owned it in the year
In a
1812
lot of ways,
for a
we're
while.
still part of the British Empire.
Sure. I heard King Charles is going to make an offer for it. Did you hear about this? Like, there's some news story going around. He's going to make an offer to the U.S. come back into the British Commonwealth. And I say,
Really?
yeah, I think we should have one condition: get a better king, we'll come in. And I'm sorry, that was mean. I apologize.
Let's go
I
back
was
to our
just a big
praise
fan.
of the journalists at the.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
At the Pillar.
So Luke Coppin did an article on our.
I hope he doesn't feel pilloried. Anyway,
I don't really like question headlines, but this is an appropriate question headline. The headline is, "Are more adults coming into the Catholic Church?" I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but are more adults coming into the Catholic Church? And what he did was he just showed you the numbers, and I thought it was pretty good news. I felt like it was. We'll go through it in a minute, but I don't know. What do you two think?
Yeah, it's very
I think
promising.
Exactly that. I mean,
They were
go ahead.
they were at pains to say that these were this was American data.
Well, no, then they gave the other data at the bottom,
Right.
But yeah, it was almost all American, and
Yes, I mean, I feel like I've noticed this just at my own parish that the RCA classes seem a little bit larger.
well, Darren was reminding me this morning that we've noticed it on the program that we had a conversation, well, probably 6 months ago, Darren, something like that. That how many people call now and go, in the RCIA or OCIA.
Yeah, we should get that. Do we have an answer to that question, by the way?
The percentage?
No, whether it's OCIA or RCIA.
No,
I think this is probably what's causing the uptick. People were delaying because they said, I'm not ready for a right, but if it's an ordo, I'll do
come
that.
in. I'm on my way.
I'm assuming that was the last hurdle for a lot of people.
No,
so
I think
glad we solved that.
RCIA, OCIA, it's one of those things where, as a Catholic, you just have to accept some mysteries. It's mysterious, and you just have to accept that. So,
I mean, look, as much as I hate renaming things out of just an inherent conservatism, it is technically true that the right is not an actual right.
No, it's not.
So
right.
RCIA was misnamed, and so it's slightly less misnamed now. But it also was funny that they were like, we really need to make this more confusing for prospective Catholics.
we should have just taken that R off and just called it the CIA. Because
yeah, that'll clear
that.
up.
Welcome to the CIA. Yeah,
This is a Christian initiation of adults.
I want to continue the conversation on the other side, but we'll get into some of the numbers, but also talk about what Darren and I noticed about 6 months ago on the show about people saying, I'm coming into the Catholic Church. Well, we'll get into all of it. Let's do that. I'll just hold on. We'll get into all of it right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catch Catholic Answers Live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year was 2004. EWTN announces the launch of the newest addition to its lineup, Sunday Night Live with Father Benedict Groeschel, featuring Father Groeschel doing a little teaching, a little preaching, and taking phone calls.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's Flannel Panel today. Joe Heschmeyer, Chris Check, and yours truly. Putting on flannel shirts and talking about the news of the world from a Catholic perspective. And we got some good news recently from some very fine reporting from Luke Coppin over at The Pillar.
Who is not Ed Condon.
Who's not Ed Condon or any of the other people we named.
Or Brandon
in
Harris.
That was probably the most exciting segment of Flannel Panel ever, where we tried to remember the names of people we had heard of once. That was a good bit. But the question that Luke posed is, and he doesn't come right out and answer it. He just gives the evidence, and I found the evidence compelling that he'll dioceses apparently report how many people come to their rite of election. And the rite of election is usually this time of year. It's where the bishop or the archbishop gets together with all of the people in that diocese who are coming into the church that year, either as candidates or catechumens. And so it's the kind of moment before the moment. You meet with the bishop. You have this. There are certain, and it is a rite. I think the rite of election. I think that's properly called a rite because it's a liturgy, really.
Yes.
And the right. It's quite beautiful. I don't know if I've been to a bunch of them because I used to work for the Bishop of San Diego, and it's a wonderful moment for every diocese, but it can also be kind of a heartbreaking moment when there's not that many people there. Well, what Luke did was look at the data. He would say, here's Detroit 2024, here's Detroit 2025, and the numbers look quite promising, really quite elevated in many places.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to focus on the positive or the negative here?
What positive? Let's start with the positive. Let's just try it for a minute, Joe. See how it goes.
This is a sign that in the midst of all of the bleak news and everything else, that not only are people still converting to Catholicism, but that this rate by all measures appears to be going up. And this is a great sign that the people who are, the prophets of despair are too excessive in their harshness and in their condemnation of everything going on in the church.
Yeah. I think that there's someone that we can point to almost 50 years ago in the sort of post-conciliar catechetical desert who made a decision to found an apostolate called Catholic Answers, and I'm speaking of Carl Keating.
Carl Keating, yeah.
And when I mention him here, I don't simply mean the legacy of Catholic Answers, which has expanded dramatically since his day there, leafleting the windshields of the Baptist parking lot, but all of the other lay apostolates that have borne fruit in the wake of that decision that Carl made to step out of the boat in faith. And it is all of these, not just Catholic Answers, but all of them, EWTN, Augustine Institute. There's so many that I think are responsible.
Yeah.
It has actually been what John Paul called for in a new evangelization, Pope St. John Paul II, and although there he's specifically speaking of the catechizing of the sacramentalized, nonetheless, there has been an effect here where the laity have responded to this call in a way that I think is unique in human history, certainly in the history of the church, and it's beginning to bear some fruit.
That is a beautiful analysis. I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what has happened.
Shall we go to the next topic then? Because I don't think Joe's
No, because Joe and I need to get in the video when Luke cuts this up and puts it on YouTube. But Joe, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to kind of caveat all of our joy. Just for the sake of truth.
I told you,
and
save it for
nuance.
the second hour.
Yeah, second hour is going to be negative hour today.
We want to hold two things together. There are more people leaving the church than coming into the church by a wide margin.
Yes.
This is a very bad trend. And so what we should see is not, look, we're exploding, we're bursting at the seams, but the hemorrhaging is slowing seemingly, hopefully. Although we're still looking at two different numbers. I mean, if you want to think about it almost like a balance sheet, I know it's a little bit gross as an analogy. You can say, okay, well, profits are up over here, but are the losses worse among, cradle Catholics? Only if you can kind of compare those numbers, like what's that trajectory looking like? Can you have a sort of balanced view of the overall picture? But I think the solution there is just, okay, well, we're not going to try to solve the overall picture right now. We can say something is clearly going well in terms of outreach to non-Catholics, an area where Catholics have not always been great about, reaching out to non-Catholics and converting and doing all of the things Jesus calls us to do. And so there are definitely green shoots, even if there are still some downward, trajectories elsewhere.
I think Joe's comments here merit some more consideration. I agree with everything he said, because this is a measure of specifically non-Catholics coming into the Catholic Church.
Right.
And the other measure that Joe mentioned is people who are already in the Catholic Church leaving it, or at least discontinuing their active participation therein. So what are the principal means of outreach to non-Catholics? And these are things that, to me, exist, as I said before, because of the efforts of laity. Because
absolutely.
If the USCCB has a formal and effective program of outreach to non-Catholics, I'm not aware of it. Or if the San Diego Diocese does. But I do know that Catholic Answers and all these other institutions, I don't mean to keep tooting our horn, though I believe a lot of great work has been done by the cooperation of the Holy Spirit by the staff of Catholic Answers. But this is the effect of the faithfulness of the laity working in the apostolate.
But
I want to
now-
suggest three.
But
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Si.
I appreciate that, Joe, because I want to say something that I not to correct anything that you just said, but to avoid an error that I think a listener might make here and there. There is not a competition between the laity and the clergy in this regard.
100%. And yeah, you're totally right. And I'm not suggesting that.
And I want to give an example.
I can't forgive people's sins. There's not going to be.
You need to work on that.
There's well, especially Joe's.
See, that's why he gets in the videos and we don't.
Especially
knock it off, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, here, let me give you an
I'll
example.
be in that video because I set him up there. That was a softball.
That's how you get in there.
7 times, 77 times.
So, we go out and it's a great privilege to get to go. And I know you both get to do them. You go to the gala for the local Catholic radio network or the Catholic radio station.
Yes.
Just a week ago, I'm in Minnesota they're doing one for Real Presence Radio in Duluth, Minnesota. 2 bishops, tons of priests come to the gala. The bishops are, they don't just get up and say, bless everybody in some perfunctory way, but they talk about how this is what we need to be doing. They ask people to give their money. So there's this partnership between bishops and laity in these things. And
Minnesota, by the way, is having a total moment.
Is
right
it really?
Now. Like
I didn't know that.
The Upper Midwest, you've got Father Mike Schmitz, you've got Bishop Cousins, you've got Bishop
Hebda,
Barron.
Archbishop Hebda.
When you think about,
I was there.
There's so much stuff going up in the tundra north. And you're just like, well, how can anything good come from Minnesota? And apparently, at least good bishops can go.
That is not the Bible quote. Can anything good come from Minnesota?
That's close.
It's not even close at all.
Minnesota's the Nazareth of America. No,
oh, is it really? No, actually,
that's Detroit would be the Nazareth of
America.
Well,
but you go to go to Real Presence Radio or Iowa Catholic Radio or Spirit Catholic Radio or Guadalupe. I hesitate to mention them because there's so many people doing amazing work. There is a fired up community of people who's all they're trying to do is share the good news with other people. Like there's no ulterior motives. This is the church in action. This is what the Second Vatican Council called for. This is what's his name? Oh yeah, the Messiah, the Lord and Messiah.
Yes.
What did he say when he said, "Go and make disciples of all the nations"? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, well, I was just piggybacking on that. What I was going to say is you think of it as 3 forces working together. You have this role of the clergy, the bishops and the priests, but they have a duty to take care of the already Catholic. And as a result, this occupies, and I think even appropriately occupies, a lion's share of what a diocesan bishop or priest is doing. The second factor are going to be ordinary lay people. And we are commissioned explicitly by Pope John Paul II to go and make disciples. If it wasn't enough that Jesus told you to, John Paul II and Christi Fideli Laity says you go to the laity, that it's not enough to just trust Father's going to do it.
Right.
Because Father realistically can't do it. And the challenge I always give people when I'm speaking at events and talking about this theme is I say, okay, by show of hands, how many of you have a friend or loved one who is not Catholic, who you know well? And everyone's hand shoots up. And then I say, okay, by show of hands, how many of them are close friends with a priest? And unless it's a priest who has his hand up in the first place, everybody's hand goes down. And then I say, okay, but think about this. Who do they know who is an on-fire Catholic? And it's like, well, it's you. So at the Last Judgment, if they didn't accept Christ, if they didn't become Catholic, it's not Father's fault. He's not going to be the one standing in account for that. I'll let you fill in the blank. That's kind of how I present it, because we can so easily slip into a very convenient clericalism where it's somebody else's job. We complain about this with government, people expecting the government to do things they should be doing themselves. We do that as Catholics when it comes to the clergy. And we've been sent to be spiritual entrepreneurs, if you want to use a cheesy kind of economic term. And then, the third piece, just to make sure it's out there. So that second piece is everybody. You don't have to be particularly gifted. You don't have to be great at theology. You don't have to be great at apologetics. Love people. Share how Jesus has touched your life. Do that. That's going to be 90% of the hard work. There is nevertheless a role for that last 10% where people might have really hard questions. And that is where a handful of people, some priests, but mostly laity, have been called to do apologetics and do the kind of the hard question answering. Don't mistake that for the first 90%, because it's not. But this can be an important role in removing certain intellectual obstacles that keep people from saying yes when they should be saying yes. That's what we do at Catholic Answers. That's what, other workers in the vineyard do in that regard. But we should see all these pieces as in harmony one with another.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. This is something that Carl Keating used to say all the time. The age, he would say, the bells of St. Mary age is over. The age of go ask Father, that is over.
Yeah.
It's not returning in our lifetime. And thanks be to God. I mean, of course, definitely I have to clarify, we want more vocations, right?
Yeah.
We want more vocations to the priesthood and the religious life. But at long last in the history of the church, the laity are bringing souls to Christ.
Right, and doing it like they're not. They're doing exactly what they were called by the bishops to do at the last great council, and we'll talk more about where the success is coming from. Give you some of the actual numbers. Joe Heschmeyer, Chris Check, Cy Kellett. Flannel Panel continues right after this. We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun, and that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron.
Deepen your connection to the Church's holy days and seasons while you draw on the wisdom of the Church Fathers. Feasts of Our Fathers, the new book from Mike Aquilina and Adam Lucas, is a treasury of history, prayers, insights, and lessons that will bring you closer to the earliest of Catholic traditions. Take your prayer life and your solidarity with the Church, past and present, to a new level. Order your copy of Feasts of Our Fathers today at shop.catholic.com.
When the resurrected Jesus appeared to disciples on the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize him until the breaking of the bread. The same is true today. In the Holy Eucharist, we really meet Jesus. In The Eucharist is Really Jesus, author Joe Heschmeyer explains how knowing Jesus in the Eucharist is the key to understanding all of Christian faith. Order your copy of The Eucharist is Really Jesus today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, sharing the good news. I mean, every day we try to share the good news, but we've got some good news about the good news. Today, Joe Heschmeyer, our guest, one of our guests, Chris Check, one of our guests. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and we're the Flannel Panel. We talk about the news of the day from a Catholic perspective. And we're talking about a report, a well put together little, morsel, like a little snapshot of, hey, this is what it looked like in the church this year, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world at the rite of election. It was in The Pillar. It was produced by Luke Coppin, who does very nice work, crunching numbers for people who don't like numbers or don't grasp numbers. And I'll give you an example. Like he just puts Archdiocese of Baltimore. 778 people came into the church, 669 last year. Some of them are wildly impressive.
Vancouver, I know it's not in
That's
America,
the one I
but
wanted to get
doubled.
to. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you just read what it says there on the Vancouver?
I don't have it in front of me. I just remember that they doubled.
But they doubled, and last year was a record. It was 350 last year. That was a record. They had never had that many, and they doubled it.
I think they have 720 this year.
Yeah.
And so I looked up Vancouver's population. They have like 760,000 people. So you keep this going for, another 10 years or so, and you're going to have a fully Catholic Vancouver.
Yeah, which is I think sometimes we are, we're jaded in some ways, and we forget that might in fact be God's plan, a fully Catholic Vancouver. Like, we shouldn't act like, we're just trying to nibble around the edges of culture. No, we want the whole thing. We want everybody. Come on in.
Yeah, I don't mean to trigger Chris here by mentioning Lincoln in a positive way, but Lincoln fired numerous generals because they kept talking about the South as if they were fighting against a foreign country, and he had to keep reminding them, no, this is part of our country. That's literally the whole point. And so with evangelization, I think the temptation is to say, well, what is the Catholic population of the diocese? And it's like, well, yeah, okay, fine. Sometimes that's a relevant measure. What's the population of humans? Because that's who properly the bishop is tending to, and the priest tends to not just the spiritual care of the Catholics in his parish, but hopefully the non-Catholics as well. And as laity called to evangelize, we're not called, I don't remember who originally said it, I've heard it accredited to a bunch of different people. It was originally about the clergy, that they're not called to be tenders of an aquarium, but fishers of men. And I think we can fall into a similar trap of like, well, this is our Catholic club. Let's just keep doing this thing. And it's like, no, you need to be helping to bring all of your neighbors in until the whole world knows the gospel of Christ.
I was impressed with the numbers from France. First of all, I was impressed that Luke spent so much time on France. Maybe they have like a really good website in France that he just downloaded it all from. I don't know, but the reason I think it's encouraging to see France is there's almost a kind of sadness in the church about France. We know she was the what was she called, eldest daughter
of the church.
Eldest daughter of the church, yeah.
Daughter,
and France, the great defender of the church, a nation of states, of saints and Marian apparitions and all that, and had lost the faith, had become a nation of Simone de Beauvoir and all this nonsense of the modern period.
I heard
people are becoming
a
Catholic.
Theologian once say, if you want to get God's attention, pray in French, because he hasn't heard the language in a while.
It's Our Lady's favorite language.
Is French?
Yeah,
indeed.
She's appeared there more than any other place.
Yeah.
Well, to see that places like Metz, I don't know how to say anything with a French accent, so is there a better way to say?
All of the letters are optional,
Metz.
is what I've learned. I have no idea.
It's right. It's probably you pronounce it charcuterie, but it's spelled Metz. Okay, so
Yes.
an 85% increase over last year. Their numbers are an 85% increase over last year. Now, again, this is a snapshot. This is not the end of the story. But to think that the faith is reviving in France, how exciting, how thrilling that's happening. With all the caveats that you gave, Joe, about we've been through a disaster. The church has been through a disaster. The disaster is related to the sexual revolution. It's related to our own sin and corruption. It's related to the industrial revolution that sent us all indoors and isolated us from one another, and a million things are involved in the disaster of the church that has befallen the church in the last 70 years. But I guess what I'm saying is, are we seeing some green shoots?
Yeah, I think it's good to not only ask, are we seeing some green shoots, but maybe ask why and where, or where and why. It seems like some places are growing much more than others. What's going on in the places that are growing, and what's maybe missing in the places that aren't? And sometimes it's not something you can simply, copy paste what some other diocese is doing, but it can be a good indication of which approaches work and which ones don't.
I'll tell you what, I want to read you guys something from the Gospel Coalition, which are you familiar with the Gospel Coalition?
I am.
Okay, tell me about them, because I'm not very familiar with the Gospel Coalition.
Yeah, it's a Protestant group, and so they, I think they're from it's D.A. Carson and Tim Keller. And so they actually often have decent articles, but very much from like a Protestant perspective. So it's often thoughtful stuff, but I find myself disagreeing pretty frequently.
Well, here's the headline from I'm glad you gave us that context, because this headline screams. Roman Catholic apologetics.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen this headline?
I have.
Roman Catholic apologetics is surging online. Intended audience? Protestants. And then an article that's, well, I'll just read you the first two paragraphs, because I think this is part of the good, this is related to the numbers from the right of election. In recent years, several notable Protestant converts to Roman Catholicism have made waves online. Influencers like Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity, Candace Owens, Joshua Charles, and help me with this, Eva Vlardingerbroek. Cross the Tiber from various expressions of Protestantism. We've had Joshua Charles on the show several times. What an impressive person. Oh, and Keith Nestor, and prominent evangelical pastors like Ulf Ekman, Keith Nestor, and Brooke Thalander made headlines when they converted to Roman Catholicism. Similar stories are littered across social media, YouTube, and websites like the Coming Home Network. This isn't a Protestant publication now. I'm reading.
Yeah, that's right.
Prior decades witnessed numerous prominent Protestants to Catholic conversions, including Francis Beckwith, Christian Smith, and Thomas Howard. What drives these Christian thinkers to make this jump? Several theories could be explored, but one factor might concern the surprising savvy of online Catholic apologetics, particularly on forums like YouTube. What do you make of that?
I was
Again,
a
Carl
little
Keating.
hurt that we weren't singled out, but
yeah,
I'm really, think about it this way. For decades, maybe if you want to say centuries, Protestants, and not all Protestants, I don't mean to speak universally here, but huge evangelical efforts within Protestantism have been not going after people who've never heard of Jesus Christ, but picking off Catholics from the church.
Right.
I mean, just yesterday, I was watching a video of from Ryan at needgod.net, and they were talking about the mission project they have to the Philippines. And it's like, Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, is next door. You could go there, but instead you want to focus on Catholics' interest. And so for decades and even centuries, they've been picking off Catholics with arguments that sound good but are often false. And eventually somebody picked on the wrong church, and it was Carl Keating's church, and they put a bunch of anti-Catholic stuff on the windshields, and so he created Catholic Answers. But even as the name suggests, this is a response to a provocation. And it turns out the Catholic responses are better than the Protestant arguments. And so Protestants, reading this with a fair mind, are saying, like, wow, I didn't know any of this stuff. I'd been taught you guys believed X, and it turns out you don't. I hadn't realized Scripture actually teaches Y. And so a lot of people read that and start to take Catholicism seriously, and many of them are becoming Catholic.
It's getting harder to not tell the truth about the Catholic faith. It's getting harder to get away with. I spoke with a guy, a wonderful man, who he converted from Latter-day Saints to Catholicism. He goes, this is what he said: the internet is the worst thing that ever happened to Latter-day Saints, because you can find out the truth. And then he said, the internet is the best thing that ever happened to the Catholic Church, because you can find out the truth.
A point that Joe has made several times here about Catholic apologetics, generally speaking, is that it has, and Todd Todd Aguilera, who runs our press, Catholic Answers Press, makes this point as well. It is a uniquely, even still, English-speaking phenomenon. And it begins in apologetics. And it begins in England. Why? Well, because it's a Protestant country. It's a Protestant country. So the need to explain and defend the faith in Italy or France, in maybe Germany, there's a bigger demand or something like that. But there's not a big German apologetics tradition. It's mostly English, and then, of course, as a consequence, American. And when Carl began his work, he is heavily influenced and inspired by the guys at Speaker's Corner with the Catholic Evidence Guild. We even published their outlines. Ronald Knox and Frank Sheed, G.K. Chesterton, Vincent McNabb, and folks like this.
You can go all the way back to Edmund Campion during the time of the Reformation.
Well, absolutely excellent point. And in fact, the Church of England, or whatever they were calling themselves under Elizabeth at that time, is they're making offers to Campion to say, could you please stop this, or because they recognize that.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of those offers were a little more forceful than
They
others.
finally made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Right. There's a second thing here that I think is very important, and that is, yes, on that list of folks that you read, you have folks like Joshua Charles, who is superb. There's no question.
Wonderful.
And a first-rate mind. It's been a treat every time we've had him on Catholic Answers. But then you also have people on there like Candace Owens, who is, I'm just going to be charitable, a mixed bag theologically, okay? And I know she has quite a following, well, and politically, I would say.
Right.
But
go ahead.
So one of the things, though, that a formal apostolate such as Catholic Answers brings to this, and I think these people in many ways are the legacy of an outfit like Catholic Answers, is if Joe is going to say something stupid, then he's got Jimmy Akin to say, okay, well, that was stupid.
We've all got Jimmy Akin.
Yeah, that's right. Or if Jimmy's going to say something stupid, he's got Tim to tell him. So there is a fraternal quality and relationship among our apologists.
Right.
So that the lone guns don't have. And we've seen some of them who
They
have
go
been,
off the deep end.
and some of them who've been associated with us, when they no longer have someone say, hey, knock it off, then they do
We
go
all
off,
need
they,
correction.
They do go off the
Everybody.
rails.
I have to go to the break. I know you have more you wanted to say, but I want to say that a very important thinker, William Lane Craig, a very bright man, says the exact opposite of what the two of you are saying. He's a Protestant himself.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in this article, he says what I think is it's not a smart critique. He's missing it's very blind. But this is what he says. William Lane Craig recently commented on this trend. I'm reading from the article in the Gospel Coalition. Many Catholic apologists seem to be more exercised and worked up about winning Protestants to Catholicism than winning non-Christians to Christ. And that seems to me a misplaced emphasis.
That's just a totally unsubstantiated.
That's completely ahistorical.
Unsubstantiated.
That has nothing to do with history. We'll talk about how that is.
Yes.
We'll make our response video to William Lane Craig right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
A special item on EWTNRC.com this month is this genuine pewter Holy Shroud medal on a 24-inch chain. It features a detailed image of the Holy Face of Jesus modeled on the Shroud of Turin. Exclusive to EWTN, it comes with a pamphlet about the Holy Face and a prayer, perfect for Lent. To order, go to EWTNRC.com and search for item number 50170.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Flannel panel today. Joe Heschmeyer, Chris Check. They put on their flannel shirts. They come in and sit with me, and the three of us form a panel. Because what the world needs is another panel of commentators. That's what this world has been lacking, is panels. But we're responding to well, first of all, celebrating the really good news as reported by Luke Coppin in the Pillar. That there seems to be something happening where more and more people are coming into the Catholic Church through the RCIA/OCIA process. And it really does, it's just an early glimmer, but it does seem to suggest that Catholic efforts at actually, inviting people into the faith, that we've been building these apostolates up since the 1960s and 70s, and many of them go far before that. But it does seem that we're having a moment of success in some hearts, and worth talking about. So the Gospel Coalition noticed this trend that Catholics were doing a good job of spreading Catholicism, and they're analyzing why is that. And one of the things they come to is this idea that what William Lane Craig said. William Lane Craig, in the article on the Gospel Coalition, says many Catholic apologists seem to be more exercised and worked up about winning Protestants to Catholicism than they are about winning non-Christians to Christ. And that seems to me a misplaced emphasis. He is telling himself a fantasy story right there. Protestantism is, from its founding, an effort to get Catholics not to be Catholic. Yeah. That is what Protestantism is. Yeah. Protestantism, right now, its primary mission fields all over the world are in Catholic countries, among Catholic populations. William Lane Craig is lying to himself.
He's a guy who...
That's delusional.
He is a guy who is very, very bright, and as a consequence is blinded by his brightness. And there's just a lack of docility there.
Well,
yeah, I think
a lack of conversion of heart.
We want every single person in the Catholic Church. We make no bones about that. The only reason we want that, it's because it is an institution, the only institution founded by Christ himself for the purpose of bringing every person, nation, creature, and thing back to proper relationship with God, back to friendship with God. That's why we want people in the Catholic Church. Do we want Protestants? Are we specifically reaching out to Protestants? Absolutely, 100% yes. But do we want every Hindu, every Buddhist, every secular TV commentator, yes, we want all of them. Even the people at NPR, they should be in the Catholic Church, not for our good, but for their good, because God loves them.
This reminds me of some of that stuff that was popular in the 90s when Father Richard Newhouse was still writing up manifestos with people, and it was, oh, well, we're not going to have sheep stealing. We're going to have a united effort in the culture war, or whatever it is they were, pro-life or something like that. And to be sure, I'm happy to link arms with Protestants in front of the abortuary. But let's not make any mistake, and I think you've said it exactly well. We want everyone to be Catholic.
Yeah, we want.
I don't even add to that. So we believe that Christ established one church, and that he wants everyone to be part of that church because he prayed that we'd all be part of one body. Okay, so if that's true, then we are called to bring everybody in there, not to say, yeah, Jesus, I agree with you, but I'm going to actually disagree on this on Protestants. We'll leave them outside. That's not acceptable. Now, the idea like we'll all just do our own denominational thing is a Protestant idea, right? Like Methodists don't think everyone needs to be a Methodist. Baptists don't think everybody needs to be a Baptist because they don't pretend to be the one true church. They can't possibly make that claim. And so what Craig is upset about is the idea that the Catholic Church believes it's the church founded by Christ. Yes. That's the whole reason we're having this conversation. Right. Now, the second thing I'd say, as Cy already said, it's not as if there aren't entire Protestant ministries that are aimed at targeting Catholics. They exist. And even outside the abortion clinic, Abolish Human Abortion won't link arms with Catholics. And I've been to multiple instances where we were praying outside an abortion clinic, and then the folks from the fundamentalist group with the loudspeaker, instead of denouncing the people murdering children, denounce us for, praying the Divine Mercy chaplet because it has a Hail Mary in there. It's a totally perverted, and I would even argue demonic, perversion of the gospel, but that exists and it's widespread. And third, I think a lot of people reach Protestants because it's a lot easier to have a conversation because okay, I can show you this part of the Bible. But if somebody doesn't accept the authority of the Bible and they want to argue cosmology, the number of people prepared to have cosmological arguments with an atheist almost necessarily is fewer than the number of people who know their Bible and can explain theology. That's true of Catholics and Protestants alike. We have more that we can work with to have a fruitful conversation with each other. And so I don't think one needs to wax conspiratorial. Fourth, and this is the last thing I'll say here, I think that there's just a lot of delusional thinking about this. And I'd point you in the article, it points to this Italian Protestant pastor, Leonardo di Chirico. Or
Chirico.
Whatever.
Chirico.
Yeah, Chirico. There it is.
Oh, Chirico.
Yeah,
Chirico.
is hard.
Hey, the three of us, we got to an Italian pronunciation.
Yeah. Chirico.
We did it. We worked our way through it. Yeah.
He attacks Bishop Barron's Word on Fire ministry as if it's an outreach to disappointed evangelicals.
That's not
I don't think anyone could possibly watch Word on Fire and think, who Bishop Barron's mostly targeting? Evangelicals. Like, it's solipsistic. It's crazy. Yeah. Meanwhile, the guy they're citing who's
Catholics
lamenting
yeah.
Catholics having responses to Protestantism has an entire page called Vatican Files where he just comments on Catholicism.
Oh, really?
So it's the insane double standard of we're going to attack Catholics, But if you respond to us at all, even in the course of mostly responding to atheists, we're going to act like you picked on us. It's bizarre.
Yeah, here's what the article says. What are some practical ways Protestant believers can respond to the rise of online Catholic apologetics? Which again, let's go back to Carl Keating and give him credit where credit is due. I mean, years and years and years ago, he was at the foundation of this movement, which is bearing so much fruit. But among the 4 things they suggested was not the one that I would suggest. Of how to respond to Catholic apologetics.
You mean like become Catholic?
Become Catholic, yes. Yes.
Well, or, like,
it's not because we're better
consistent
people than you. It's not because we're smarter people than you. It's got nothing to do with us or you. It has to do with the person of Jesus Christ, who wants to meet you in the Eucharist, who wants to forgive
and
your
if you're
sins.
someone who really thinks it doesn't matter if someone's Catholic or Protestant, don't respond to people becoming Catholic then. Be like, that's fine.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yes.
if you're actually indifferent to denomination, I would say, number 1, our Lord isn't. But number 2, if you are, then let people become Catholic and don't get worked up about it.
It's true. If William Lane Craig sees a Lutheran become a Methodist, I don't think he gets exercised about that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, right, right. But
Because it's all mere Christianity. But it didn't follow that principally. Like, if someone says, I don't think Catholics are Christians, then fine. You can see why each side would care about that. But there's something that it strikes me as disingenuous about saying, like, hey, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or Protestant, but don't become Catholic.
Then I will say this, they did a dangerous thing at the end. They mentioned 4 Protestant thinkers that you can watch on YouTube. And you know why that's dangerous? Because next year, those people might have figured it out and come into the Catholic Church. Again, this is not some form of triumphalism. What are you protesting against if you're Protestant now? What's left to protest against? It's obvious. It seems to me it's obvious now that after all these years where the Bible came from. You can all these lies that have been told about the Catholic faith, worshiping saints or Mary, they've been debunked a million times online in videos that you can watch anytime you want. What are you protesting against? Come back where Jesus, come back to what Jesus founded. He wants you there because he loves you.
Yeah, I mean, I would even add like the 4 YouTube channels I recommend. It's Gavin Ortland, who's a Reformed Baptist, who doesn't agree with Dr. Jordan Cooper, who is a Lutheran, who doesn't agree with Mike Winger, who is an evangelical, who doesn't agree with Wes Huff. Yes. I mean, it's 4 people who don't actually preach the same thing, and just saying like, hey, don't listen to what Catholics are saying that's like a single coherent theology. Listen to these 4 disagreeing voices instead.
Right.
Some say John the Baptist, some say one of the prophets. And it's like, no. There's error is diverse and contradictory. Truth is united. I mean, literally, Gavin Ortland's channel is called Truth Unites. Where do you find a church proclaiming a single vision of the truth?
Yes.
And it's just remarkable. Last thing, I know I'm going long on this. Mike Winger is quoted in this accusing Catholics of lying about Catholic teaching to try to get Protestants to become Catholic. And I would suggest the humbler approach is to say, maybe Catholics understand Catholic theology better than you do. And the reason that, the arguments Catholic apologists are making don't agree with your vision of Catholicism isn't because they're lying, but because you've been spreading falsehoods about the Catholic Church.
Right. Your vision of it was not true. And one of the things I do love about Trent Horn, I've loved it for years about Trent Horn, but you too, Joe, all you guys, is this sense that we're not trying to cover up the sins of the Catholic Church. Like we get it. Like if you're looking at the Catholic Church going, oh, I don't want to belong to that. Look at what a mess that's been throughout history. Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable response. You have to work your way past that. Christ himself prophesied that the wheat and the chaff would grow up together. If Christ himself prophesied, don't look for something better than what the Lord himself prophesied. But I don't, like they go, well, part of this article is, well, in the 16th century, the church needed reform. Like we shouldn't forget that. Yeah, in the 12th century, the church needed reform too, but it wasn't.
In the 21st century. I mean, it's constantly the case. Semper Reformanda is perfectly valid as long as you realize reform isn't, if I say I'm going to reform Catholic Answers and my reform is I leave and form some new group, that's not an actual reform. That's a break. It's like the reformers are not actually reformers. They're not reforming the church. Francis of Assisi is a reformer.
Right.
The rebels.
These are revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason we don't call it the American Reformation when we broke away from England.
Well, some of these folks that they mention here are just saintly people. I've just loved anytime I've gotten to speak with Keith Nefster or with Joshua Charles. I'm going to try to find out more about some of these other. I'm really
Christian
not
Bertuzzi. I've done a lot of stuff with him in the past.
Cameron
I just said Christian.
Yeah, Capturing
Cameron.
Christianity.
I'm like, I know Christian Bertuzzi. Yeah, Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity. There it is.
But and I like that the Coming Home Network got a shout out too, because man, do they do great work at the Coming Home Network. Really wonderful work. And what I would say one of the great byproducts of the work the Coming Home Network has done is they've reminded Catholics how to be Catholic. Like, it's not all about evangelicals when we do these things. They've reminded us Catholics how to be Catholic. All right, we'll take a quick break. That was the positive hour. That was the non-fussy hour. Wait till next hour starts with our National Public Radio quiz on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's Flannel Panel, and we're about to do our National Public Radio audio quiz with Joe Heschmeyer and Chris Check. Always a fun part of the program. Again, I almost gave out the number. I get in the habit of just giving out the number at the top of the hour, and it's hard to break it. I do want to say
give the number out, but we won't answer the phone.
We're not going to answer it. No. There's no one there to answer it. I just looked over at the station. There's nobody there. Ava
also when they
Vlardingerbrook.
call, it's not going to be right now because this is pre-recorded.
Yeah. Ava Vlardingerbrook. Did I say it right? I messed up that name so bad last hour, and Darren was familiar with her because a lot of those people he is seeing about getting them to be guests on our show.
Fantastic.
Why do they have really hard names up there in the above the Arctic Circle? All people that live above the Arctic Circle, no matter where you go, they have really hard names.
Is that above the Arctic Circle?
Oh, she's Dutch? Oh, yeah. Is it above? Yeah, that's a geography question that I sadly don't know the answer to. Where is Dutch? Where's Dutchland? Where's Dutchy? What's it called?
Okay.
All right. All right. It's time for that. Now that I have shown my shining intellect, it is time for us to go to National Public Radio.
Aren't we going to Amsterdam on our cruise? Is that in Dutchland? Is Amsterdam in Dutchland?
Is Amsterdam?
Where's Amsterdam?
It's like in
Holland.
It sounds low. It sounds somewhere
Sweden,
low. I associate the word low
Scandinavia.
It's the capital of the Netherlands.
It's the capital of Netherlands.
I was like 90% sure, but I had to double check because I get the Netherlands and Denmark confused because Danish and Dutch.
Do the Spanish still run the Netherlands?
I don't think the Spanish still run Spain. I think they're having some trouble with that. So we'll see. I don't know. So therefore, where Amsterdam is the capital of the netherworld, you said? Is that what you said? I didn't hear.
Something like that. Low countries, netherworld.
Okay.
So, yeah.
National Public Radio. What can one say about National Public Radio?
On the air?
What can one say about them that they haven't said about themselves? National Public Radio here in the United States, for our international listeners, I always feel like I need to kind of explain National Public Radio. And I've come up with this. It's like the BBC without the commitment or the education. I don't know how.
Or the cool accents.
I don't know.
They have their own, not accent, but their own cadence at least.
Yeah, it's the uptalk. It's
very odd.
It's the Central Valley uptalk.
It's the it's like Americans spend millions of dollars to have smug people tell them why America's bad. Is that a good description of National Public Radio?
It seems accurate. Anymore, I mean, and look, people of a certain age may remember when NPR was a really great source of information because of its model where it's not profit driven. It could explore things from kind of unpopular lenses. And I think it's fair to say it's been so ideologically captured. It was always left wing. But it was at least intellectually curious in the past.
There's
left wing is fine. There's nothing wrong with left wing.
Actually, there's tons of things wrong with
it. No, not inherently, because there has to be a left wing and a right wing.
Right.
But if you do it with intelligence and share, like they looked into so many things that were interesting. They were willing to do long form reporting, which was always exciting. Yeah. And now I don't know.
There is one guy. If you're young and you do want to have a sense of just a sense, not a complete sense, but a sense of what NPR was like when it was more intelligent in the 70s and 80s. Scott Simon on Saturdays. He still does it? He does the morning program on Saturdays, whatever that's called, morning edition.
Weekend edition.
Weekend edition.
Oh, yeah, right.
And he is of that.
He's more like that.
He must be in his age. I don't know how.
They were always kind of Ivy League-y. They had this kind of...
He's 73. Okay. His wiki right here.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with being Ivy League-y. Now you're going to say, yes, there is. That's an ontological category.
Lots of things.
All right. National Public Radio, All Things Considered program did a story on a deep divide among religious people in the United States. So here's where the quiz begins. What divide are they concerned about? I'm going to give you three options. What divide is National Public Radio reporting on among religious people in the United States? A, whether we should transition transgender teens. B, how do we respond to the Trump administration? Or C, what is the proper care for migrants? Once again, it's an ABC question.
It's all three.
I didn't want to make this one too easy. What dividing
all of the above?
Dividing Christians did National Public Radio decide they needed to report on whether we should transition transgender teens, how to respond to the Trump administration, or what's the proper way to care for migrants?
It's A.
I think it's A.
Well, let's have clip 1, please.
Last month, Kansas became the 26th state to ban or otherwise limit gender-affirming medical care for teens, according to KFF. Those bans are supported by some of the biggest religious groups in the U.S., including the Catholic Church and the Southern Baptist Convention. But as Rose Conlon of member station KMUW reports, not all faith leaders agree.
Well, what not all faith leaders agree is not news, okay? I don't know why we're reporting that. But
I was so distracted by the fact that her voice seemed to be coming exclusively through her nose.
Right. Well, but this is what I like. I did not want to make this easy on you guys, but I wanted to test my theory, which is every story on NPR is about transgenderism now.
Because if you can get someone who's with you on transgenderism, all like B and C go with A.
Right. Yeah, right.
Like
They're not
A is the furthest left.
Yes.
Saying like Donald Trump says things that are bad is not a particularly controversial political stance. Saying we should be kind to migrants, not a particularly controversial stance. Saying we should transition minors, that's an 80-20 where you're on the wrong side, just in terms of, they're staking themselves out at the political fringe under the guise of journalism. But I mean, it's patently, transparently activism, because they wouldn't
this is
say,
activism, right?
Let's see equally right-wing fringe view and let's mainstream that. They would say, no, we don't want to platform that. So they're intentionally platforming, to use the obnoxious parlance of the day, these what are honestly extreme views as measured by not just American politics, but any, like, take European politics. Look at the United Kingdom. Look at the Cass report. Look at how much like British people are standing up against mutilating children.
Well, it turns out that most people have noticed that there's a difference between boys and girls. And this has happened. It's amazing, but even before modern science, you'll find records in the historical record, going back all the way to cave people, that people notice there's a difference between boys and girls.
Can I say something that it needs to be very much underscored about what Joe said? This has been part of the playbook for more than a century. It's to stake out. It isn't to say how can we come to terms, or here I am, here are you. Where do we have some common ground? It is in fact, to stake out the most extreme position, and in so doing, slowly and continuously and steadily move the conversation in that direction.
Right.
And it was Herbert Marcuse who proposed this, and others like him, and they've been doing it ever since. The reason I take a minute to repeat what Joe said here is because it shows how, in many cases, it's just not fruitful to attempt to have conversations with these people, because they're not, in fact, interested in where are we going to find some common ground. But
that's right.
We are so far out here, and we're going to continue to,
because if we can get you to agree to this, then you're in on all the rest of it, on all the other things that we want. And that is the definition of activism. That is not journalism. All right, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm going to do a cliffhanger question. I'm going to give you. I have another multiple choice question for you about this urgent and important report from National Public Radio on how not all religious people agree on everything. And the hero of this story about transgenderism is a rabbi who draws on the Torah to help people understand what they owe God. B, a Baptist minister opposed to altering the bodies of teenagers. Or C, a United Methodist minister who has covered his walls in the office with pride flags and is the dad of a gender-fluid teenager. Who is the hero? Don't tell me your answers, gentlemen.
I went to an easier one after
Don't
the harder one.
Tell me, gentlemen, is it the rabbi, is it the Baptist minister, or is it the United Methodist minister? We'll find out right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Magnificat. Published monthly, Magnificat features texts of daily Mass, prayers, articles, meditations, art commentaries, and more, in step with the liturgical rhythm of the Church, on the web at magnificat.com.
Carry the faith wherever you go. Watch your favorite EWTN show, series, or special, or listen to your favorite EWTN radio program at any time, day or night. EWTN On Demand brings all your favorites instantly. Download the EWTN app at EWTNapps.com today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. National Public Radio on their All Things Considered program did a story about the divide religious people are facing about whether or not we should transition transgender teenagers. It's hard for me to even put the words together sometimes. Who is the hero of their story? A rabbi who draws on the Torah to help people understand what they owe God? A Baptist minister opposed to altering the bodies of teenagers? Or a United Methodist minister who has covered the walls of his office with pride flags and is the dad of a gender-fluid teenager? Gentlemen, which of these figures is the hero of NPR's story?
The Methodist minister.
Yes, I think pretty clearly.
Well, prepare to be shocked, gentlemen. Play clip 6, please.
Back at Grace United Methodist Church, Mackenzie's office is decorated with rainbow flags. Like many Americans, his perspective on gender identity is shaped by his personal relationships. In his case, being the dad of a gender-fluid teenager.
This is what I would refer to as manipulation, again and again and again. And I'll tell you something, just to fast forward, the story ends from the perspective of the gender-fluid teenager, which is an NPR trick. First of all, because we're not going to attack that teenager. We're not going to. That's an unimpeachable witness. Like, you can't. If you do attack a teenager, you're a jerk. So obviously we're not going to do that. But I will point out that that's manipulative. What you're doing is humanizing one side of the story so that you can dehumanize the other side of the story. Anybody who is opposed to this poor teenager is the jerk of the story.
Yeah, I want to just point out on NPR's own website, they have an article. It's an opinion piece by Elizabeth Jensen, the NPR public editor, called "Who Gets the Last Word?" Recognizing that whoever you give the last word to, this is a power, because it's kind of the thing that you're leaving people with, right? So when you say, if you want to know somebody's bias, you should often just look and see
who did they give the last word to. Yep.
And then also how sympathetic or unsympathetic, how smart or how foolish are the people chosen to represent the two sides. Now, I haven't heard this piece. I don't even know if they bothered giving a second side or if they just vaguely said, like, Catholic Church bad, and then just said, look at all these really sympathetic figures on definitely not our side. We're just reporting the news.
They did report the Catholic position. They reported it, now I'll have to paraphrase, but it's basically the Vatican opposes gender-affirming care. I think that's almost word for word. So that you're stuck with this. That's all they said about it. But they had a very articulate guy from the Baptist, I don't know, whatever the political, advocacy arm of the Baptist church is in Kansas, and he did a good job. He said, "Look, love is his basic point was, it's not love to allow people to live in untruth, and we're not loving people by letting them encourage teenagers to live in untruth that will, alter their bodies forever."
Good on him.
And he did a good job. I thought he did a good job. So it was like all that's in the middle, and then we go back to what the story's really about, which is if you disagree with NPR, you hate this teenager who lives in Kansas.
Yeah, it's a nice left-wing sandwich.
We're
going to start with here are the good guys, and then you got to have a little bit of conflict in Act 2. So here are the bad guys who want to oppose the brilliance of what we believe in. And then you end with the sympathetic story about the protagonists.
Yeah.
I'm reminded here, even the use of like Vatican in the kind of pejorative way that it comes up in these stories, this is a bit of a deep cut, but the 1949 book American Freedom and Catholic Power by the left-wing journalist from The Nation.
That's not
Paul Blanchard.
That is not kind of a deep cut. Really? Did you just say the 1949 book and then it's kind of a deep cut? Yeah, that's almost
Paul
a century
Blanchard
old.
Was this beloved, like leftist, kind of liberal, but I think even more than liberal, just like left-wing. But he was obsessed with the idea that Catholicism, that America had a Catholic problem because of this alien control by the Vatican, that it was un-American to be Catholic. And we often associate that with like fringe elements on the Protestant right. But the atheistic left has long had a version of this as well. And so I think you should recognize when they tee up what is frankly often xenophobia, you can call that out as like, okay, don't do that. That's gross.
Yeah. All right. So this next one is not a multiple choice question. All right. All you do is finish the sentence. The reporter is going to start a sentence, and I am going to ask you to finish the sentence. So it's a little more open ended. Let's have clip 2. Here's the reporter, and you're only going to get the sentence up to a certain point. It'll stop, and I want you to say what are the words that come after that.
Mackenzie is a lifelong Republican and was raised in a church that taught homosexuality and gender diversity are counter to Christian teachings. But Mackenzie says...
No. We cut that too early. Oh, we cut that too early. Okay, maybe we didn't cut it. No, maybe we didn't cut it too early. I was thinking of the wrong clip. So Mackenzie says he came to believe something. So that's. I think we did want a few more words there. So it ends with, so this guy was a Republican and he was raised in a church that says homosexual acts are wrong. Well, she didn't say that. She didn't. That's not how she said it. But
gender diversity. You can't even have two genders in whatever church Mackenzie's from.
I know, what a
probably
crazy
how Mackenzie
church.
has this ambiguous name.
So he came to believe is what was where that was supposed to end. And so, all right. So, what did he come to believe?
That Jesus loves all people.
That Jesus
I
loves
was
all
going to
people.
say that God loves everybody, something like that. That God loves him as he is.
Okay, so that would mean, if that's the answer, that would mean that all these Christians who believe that marriage is between a man and a woman,
they don't love everyone,
or don't believe in gender fluidity or the transgender movement, their belief, by contrast, is that Jesus doesn't love everybody. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That
I mean, that would be ridiculous. It'd be hard to believe anyone would be so manipulative as to do that.
Because that would be really manipulative if what you're saying is, I used to think Christian things, but then I came to believe that Jesus loves all people. Is that what you guys are saying?
Yes.
That's how low you think this reporter is going? All right. How did the reporter finish the sentence, Darren?
But Mackenzie says he came to believe that all humans are made in the image of God, a belief that has become personal for him.
Came to believe.
So he came to have a personal.
To believe.
He used to be a Christian or whatever. I mean, I'm obviously paraphrasing in a negative way, but he used to be one of those Christians that believes in marriage and stuff. But then he came to believe that God cares about all people. Yeah.
So I'm reminded here, the great irony of this is one of the strongest points we have in resisting the kind of transgender ideology is that you already are made in the image of God. You don't have to mutilate your body. I mean, so Donald Trump,
Joe.
Not exactly State of the Union, whatever his address to Congress is called. I've got the text in front of me. I just pulled it up. He says, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology. I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Obviously, we don't want to say that in a way that denies original sin or any of this stuff.
Well, you're not perfect, but you're awful
You don't
good.
need surgery.
Who's the author of this?
That was Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
That was Donald Trump. Yeah. Which means we don't know who the author of it is because presidents
it used to be Joshua Charles, right?
For the vice president.
He wrote for the vice president.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just going to say that's the great perversity. There's such this incredible game of doublespeak that gender affirming care is the stuff that mutilates you at the gendered level. Right. And to believe that you're made in the image of God means you have to deface the image of God as much as you can on your body. Like that is so abhorrently false. Like our message is not, if you are confused about your gender, God doesn't love you or you're not made properly. Our message is, even in the midst of your confusion, God made you beautiful as a man or a woman, and he chose that, not you, and that his design for you is better than whatever psychological state you find yourself in.
I think we can encourage our listeners, Cy and Joe, who find themselves frustrated by this, to make a practice of listening to how the words specifically are being manipulated to mean either to set up this opposition or to mean something that
they don't mean
what they are. Yeah.
Right.
So choice is a great example, right? Yeah, which means killing. But
that's a very good point.
Another one.
States' rights. No, I'm just
kidding. Another one that Joe. I'd actually like to come back to Joe's utterly bizarro analogy from the earlier segment, but or simile. But
I didn't mean to derail you.
It's okay. Another word to be alert to is safe. So we hear about safe spaces all the time. In the National Catholic Reporter, which follows these methods of journalism the same way that National Public Radio does, there was an article about a transgender hermit who was going to come and speak at a Catholic church. But then someone in authority stopped this, thanks be to God. But the poster for the ad advertising the event said, this is going to be a safe space, right? So what that automatically sets up is that anyone who's opposed to this confused man...
It's not going to be a safe space for them.
Yeah, well, or requires or desires for the people to come to it not to be safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Right.
Yeah. It's the idea that speech is violence and violence is speech.
Yeah, that's a good. But someone should assemble like a top 10 list of words that are currently
top 50
being used. You know, we should monitor. Like these are the words that are being used to basically tell you you're not allowed to talk about this.
Well, they mean the opposite of what they mean. Here's one. Border. Well, until very recently, border didn't mean what it should mean. You know.
Wait, what did it mean?
Well, it
like
meant,
someone that boards at your house?
No, border that, between two countries.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
It meant civ or something, but it didn't really mean border.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, but words change over time. It's that's fine. But the question is there an intentional attempt to use this word like safety or safe space?
Yes, right. Or choice.
Yeah, to basically to label people.
Love.
Yeah. So this is a weird thing. Like this is like a cudgel that's used against Christians. Like, well, Jesus taught love. Right. And when I found that out, I realized that all the other things Jesus taught are baloney. Well, that's not how that works. Jesus is love. Jesus not just teach it. He is love incarnate. He is love come among us as a man. So listen to him. Like that's really, really important that you listen to him.
This is why the work of our colleague, especially, and I'm not saying the other apologists don't do this, but our colleague and friend Carla Broussard, who is philosophically trained and insists on using words that we are going to agree what the definition of those words are. And he insists on, these are the categories and let's agree what they mean. Because if we can't first agree on those things. So one thing that you very rarely hear the people at National Public Radio talk about, as Joe has observed already, is what's true. And by the way, what does that mean, right? Can we agree what truth means? And if we agree that there's something called truth, then we have to agree that there's something called not truths. But that's a word that you'll hear love a lot, but you really won't hear truth a lot.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because love is so malleable a word.
Or what does love mean? And as Carla would tell you, and Joe or anybody who's listened to Catholic Answers Live can say, it's
never
desiring.
Having to say no. Okay, sorry. I guess I didn't know the answer.
No, it means love good, good feelings about everyone.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's desiring the good of the other. And then, of course, good is going to require some definition there as well.
Flannery O'Connor, in her letter to Dr. Spivey, I believe, talks about, she throws out the thesis that Catholics are more fascinated by truth and Protestants by goodness. And if you take that principle seriously, and she argues as a result, Catholics love Protestants more than they love atheists, but they understand atheists better than they understand Protestants. Because an atheist who says, I don't think this stuff is true, okay, we're having the same conversation. A person who says, well, it doesn't matter what the doctrine is because we're all just trying our best, that's a different framework.
Yeah.
There's more of that thought, but I'll have to save it for the other half.
I got another quiz question coming up. National Public Radio, endless, wonderful information about religion in America. And when they cover it, we try to cover them. We'll do more of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Have you ever wondered about the mysterious, even obscure aspects of the Catholic faith? Dive into the Jimmy Akin podcast, where Jimmy brings together information from many fields as he pushes the boundaries of apologetics. Tune in today to the Jimmy Akin podcast, Mysteries of the Faith, a highly entertaining, informative, and at times humorous show that will help you grow in your faith. Visit JimmyAkinPodcast.com today to subscribe.
Lots of people have big questions about Catholicism. It needs a big book of answers, and now it's got one. The Big Book of Catholic Answers is filled with helpful replies to more than 250 questions about the faith. Questions about God, salvation history, the Creed, the Bible, the list goes on and on. Order your copy of the Big Book of Catholic Answers today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun. And that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I didn't know we were going to get a little bit of groovy music today. But what a day we're having. What a great day we're having. And enjoying listening to National Public Radio cover American religion. It's always fascinating. Last time it was a book about how Catholics had a chance to become good secularists in the 60s, but they blew it and they ended up stuck in that backwards Catholic Church. This time it's about how there's a divide, a quote-unquote divide, among religious people in the United States over transitioning teenagers. Over
if I may, Si, I think you're sleeping on the best observation or insight from the last guy, which was that he discovered that Jesus didn't speak Latin to the disciples.
That was...
I think we all came away edified knowing that our tax dollars were going to spread such important information.
Well, that's why it's that high-quality reporting that we get from National Public Radio that makes us come back time and time again when they report on religion.
I assumed he spoke English. Why else is the Bible in English?
I know. You see, Joe, that's what you're the deep thinker of the group. You really are the deep thinker of the group. But I don't know how much of a divide there is. I mean, among religious people, that's different than the divide in the whole society. I mean, I think a very large percentage of people think you should leave kids alone. You shouldn't be injecting them with things, or a very large number of people know that there's a problem with histrionic parents and school counselors who are whipping this up. Let's just admit the reality of what's going on. Like the people who are advocating for gender diversity and helping these children. They're not helping these children. They're leading these children down this path in many, many cases. And there's also this contagion going on where young people are lost and confused, and they're like, oh, I think the reason for it is I'm transgender. If next week you come up with a different thing, they're going to have a different thing. This is a media created problem, as many problems. And I actually don't blame the media for media created problems. The media is not at fault for them. These are just things that come over the human species. We're social creatures, and we take social cues and we get social contagions. And the media is the means by which those social contagions are transmitted these days, but
also sometimes created and propagated. I mean, a fair number of these things are not just reported.
Fair enough.
They are expanding it. They're trying to turn it into a story.
Right. That's certainly the case. But it's like the reporting that says the people from the World War II generation, this percentage of them came admitted to being gay, and then people from the millennials and Gen Zs, it's this percentage. Well, you look at that and you go, that's a meaningless thing. This has nothing to do with reality. This has to do with how those words, the meaning of them changed over time, what you're encouraging people to think, what they're seeing on television. This has nothing to do with the nature of human beings or anything. So anyways, it's always fun to find out what NPR is reporting on, because frankly, I mean, there's a lot of unhinged media in the United States, but they're always being led by NPR. National Public Radio is always, they're thinking, what's the looniest idea? Let's get out ahead of that one. All right, I think that's what they say in their editorial meetings. So one last clip for our quiz on their reporting on I did want to ask you this. You can always say there's a divide. Like there's a divide in the Republican Party over, just say X. There is, because the Republican Party is huge. There's always going to be a divide. There's a divide in Indian society about X. Yes, there is. So the question is the divide worth reporting on? And it seems to me religious people are basically, we like the Venn diagram of religious Americans and all Americans is about 80%. So of course there's a division. It doesn't seem to me that that's an interesting reportable fact.
The other thing about the word division is that sort of contained in it, it means that the sides are kind of about the same size.
Yeah.
And now I was actually digging into the etymology, and that's not actually in there. But when we divide something, we think about in two or something like that. Not we cut a little piece of it off.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's a good point.
I think this divide. Joe said 80-20. What is it? 99-1. Who really thinks it's a good idea to mutilate a teenager's genitals?
No, it's insanely low, and even the people who do think it, as soon as the zeitgeist changes, they're not going to think it anymore. It's a passing fever that we're having, and NPR is all. If the country catches a fever, NPR spikes it to 140. I mean, they catch the fever hard. I think that they are thought leaders, but what they are is people. They're a sign of whatever is happening. They just take it to the extreme. They go to the absolute loony extreme with it. All right,
and they do it with a straight face.
And they do it with a kind of derision of everybody else.
Who thinks it's a good idea that a male swimmer should share the locker room with the rest of his Ivy League swim team?
No,
I've got a worse one for you. We were talking before the break about the Orwellian kind of use of language to mean the opposite of what it actually means. 3 days ago, as of this pre-recording, the headline says this. It's a Chicago source. Federal complaints lodged against Chicago, Deerfield, for accommodating trans students.
Yeah, that's not what happened.
Nope. They forced young girls to change in front of a biological boy.
Right.
That's what we used to call that evil if you did something like that.
Right. I mean, there were movies about that. And, this is child abuse. And so calling that accommodation of the boy, like forcing girls to change, that's insane. So I couldn't find, at least kind of a moment's notice, numbers on Like, what percentage of people are against surgical transitioning for minors? Because a lot of times I think when these questions get asked, there's so many euphemistic terms that people don't necessarily even know what it is they're saying yes or no to. You know, if someone says, are you affirming gender affirming care? I'm like, well, yeah, definitely. It just turns out we mean opposite things by that.
Yeah, we just don't. Right. It's like the whole saying a transgender girl. A transgender girl is a boy. Like but you have but there's but you're not even permitted to have the discussion with me unless you'll use the language I mandate that you use. You're a bigot if you go, well, I don't know what a transgender girl is.
Right.
Well, it's
this level of Orwellian language. You know, you unless you're really deeply in this stuff, which probably says your views already, then trans man, trans woman. Most people have to stop and say, I don't know if you mean a man thinking he's a woman or a woman thinking she's a man. So people are confused by this stuff and people seize upon this. But nevertheless, there were two things that I saw from this 2022 Pew Research study that suggests that this is not going the way the kind of radical activists want it to go. In terms of those polled who say that being a man or woman is determined by sex assigned at birth. Assigned at birth is an insane way of describing sex. First of all, it's biological, and it's not assigned, and it's not at birth. You can do a gender. Literally, there's stuff now where you can just do a blood draw on a pregnant woman and find out if there's male DNA in her body to know if she's pregnant with a boy or not.
Yeah,
that's,
right.
Nobody's assigning. Nobody's
all of
saying,
that is just
well,
fake.
to
It's
me-
all a made up world. It's a pretend world. Assigned what at birth? No, I mean. Edgar's wife said the funniest thing one day. I said, "Are you going to find out at the when you get the ultrasound if it's a boy or girl?" She goes, "We're going to find out when he tells us what the gender of the child is." I thought that was hilarious because
I had one of my sisters asked when my wife was pregnant, when are you going to find out gender? And I said college.
Yeah.
But people get that it's a joke.
But they actually believe this fantasy. They actually think that.
I don't think as many people believe it as say,
Yeah,
because
right.
as soon as you're pregnant, even you're very left-wing, very liberal, very woke, whatever, say all the right things on trans stuff that's politically correct, they'll ask you the same question if you're going to find out gender. They know. But we see this in the data. So in 2017, Americans were split 54 to 44 on whether sex was assigned at birth or whether being a man or woman was tied to your sex or whether it could be different from your sex. By 2022, after years of very aggressive over-the-top activism, they went from being a 44 to 54 minority to being a 38 to 60. They've been losing ground the more they talk about this.
Right.
Because they're talking just insane nonsense. That's the first data point.
Right.
Second one.
Like talk more. I wish they would talk more because they're making our argument for us. The more they talk, the more you go,
very
that's
much like
not
what you
right.
said about Protestantism in the last hour. Yeah, if you want to have this debate now that the internet exists, you'll find pretty quickly that these accusations aren't true and people can find out the truth. Same thing here. Well, the second data point here is when polled about whether parents should be investigated for child abuse, if, in the words of Pew, if they help someone younger than 18 get medical care for a gender transition, the numbers there, only 36%, I think it was, were like firmly convinced that they shouldn't be investigated for child abuse.
Yeah.
So you have those kind of 36% opposed, I believe it was. Yep. So a third of people think you shouldn't be investigated for child abuse. That means that two-thirds of people at the very least aren't opposed to the idea that you might be doing something horribly illegal and criminal to your child. I don't think you're winning that issue in PR.
Can I tell you just one consequence of this that I am very sensitive to? We've had people on the show to talk about this, and that is that parents with severely disabled autistic children or children who have severe mental illness are afraid to take their children to hospitals because their children are being told, well, your problem is that you're transgender. So this has very, very real consequences for the people who are suffering the worst kind of suffering you can suffer. Children with psychiatric disorders are not being treated because parents no longer trust psychiatrists and psychiatric hospitals. And I'm not making this, you look on the internet, there are scores and scores of people who have publicly come out and said, I can't send my kid back to the hospital because the last time I sent my kid to the hospital, they were told they're a girl and they came home thinking they're a girl. look, if you're creating a situation where children can't be treated for psychiatric disorders, I mean, this is like hell that this child is living in. You're not a good person. You're a bad person. Stop doing that.
I think of the millstone.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes, indeed.
Right. All right, let's take a break. We'll finish the quiz right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and his gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul street evangelists out in the public square sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I told him about the woman who came to me and said her two children hadn't spoken to each other for 2 years. Their grandma died, and she was very wealthy. She left half to each one. She said they're arguing over a commode. She said it's inlaid. Can you imagine being in hell and somebody saying to you, "What are you here for?"
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Joe Heschmeyer, our guest. Chris Check, our guest. I got to give you guys the last quiz question from the NPR reporter. All right, so NPR did a report on the divide. It's a completely made up and manipulative report. Let's just say it like it is about the divide among religious people on whether or not we should transition teenagers. So here's the last question. So it's the same as before. You guys have to finish the sentence. So the NPR reporter is going to start a sentence about this transgender affirming Methodist minister who's the hero of our story here. And I want you to fill in the blank of the end of the sentence. And I hope I gave you the right timestamps on this one, Darren. I apologize for the last one. All right, go ahead with, is it clip number 4? Yeah, clip number 4.
In the small Kansas town of Winfield, worshipers gather for Sunday service at Grace United Methodist Church. Pastor Charles McKenzie begins his sermon by introducing himself and his...
Introducing himself and
Pronouns. Pronouns.
What do you say?
Yes, pronouns. By the way, do they really have that organ music?
I was thinking the same thing.
Was like
church?
that's something.
Sounds like NPR downloaded that.
They edited that in,
or they had to call somebody. Could you get the organist to come in? Well, we don't really play the organ. You just find an organist, bring him in. Like this whole thing seems manufactured.
Yeah. Well, I think distortions with organs is kind of the whole theme of the piece.
So you think that the hero? Wait, Joe, that was finally a good pun, and I almost just went right past it. Please say that again, Joe.
Saying distorted organs is kind of the whole piece. That's all that they're advocating for here.
All right. So you both think that he introduces himself and his pronouns?
Or his son. Or his
could be
his gender fluid son.
I think it's going to be pronouns. I don't know.
All right. It just seems to me so silly that a minister introduces himself and his pronouns, and then NPR uses that in there. I feel like you guys have just sunk to the depths of silliness now. Play the clip. See what he really introduced.
Pastor Charles McKenzie begins his sermon by introducing himself and his pronouns. He, him.
I like that. I like that
she qualified. He, him.
Charles, and said his pronouns. She clarifies.
He, him.
It's the most comical thing. I mean, look, I've said this before. I'll say it again. There's a whole wing of left-wing activism that is purely performative. It's just about saying the right things to feel good about yourself. You do the land acknowledgement. You put the pronouns in your bio. And it does not help anyone in any way, shape, or form. All it does is it makes you feel like a good person.
Yeah,
it is gross. And it's ultimately exploitative.
I don't have a strong opinion about this, but I have been predominantly convinced that it was good for the Washington football team to let go of that kind of derogatory name it had regarding Native American people. So they changed the name. I have not noticed any improvement in the lives of Native American people. I haven't noticed like it's. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do or anything. I'm just saying that all this performance at a certain point, it's the pretense of change without actually fixing anything for anybody.
Yeah, in 2020, Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation received $90 million in donations, and I would ask, what good is wrought by those? In other words, I'm not like people who say there's racial oppression, everything else. I'm with you. My critique is not that. My critique is, are you doing anything to address the problem, or are you just showing how woke you are to the problems, and that makes you feel like you've succeeded because the real thing you were advocating for wasn't others, it was your own goodness.
Yeah.
And so you were, widening your phylacteries to show what a holy and righteous person you are by affirming all the right creeds of your new religion.
Widening your phylacteries is a perfect reference. That's exactly what it is. It's a matter of widening your phylacteries.
And so that sort of thing, like wherever you fall, left, right, wherever you fall on even social issues, hopefully you can look at that and say, this is obnoxious and gross. This is people who are, in many cases, economically privileged, insulated from many of the problems they're reporting on, who assuage their own guilt by reminding themselves they're one of the good guys by having all the right mental opinions of it. Nobody's helped by that. And it just becomes this weirdly navel-gazing solipsism.
Yeah, virtue signaling with the yard signs, the love
In
is
this
love.
house, we
in this house, we believe yard signs. My sons, before they moved to their current location in Minneapolis, used to live near the University of St. Thomas and in St. Paul, Minnesota. And this was a neighborhood replete, abundant with those love is love signs. But honestly, I tell you, if an African American family actually moved into this neighborhood in St. Paul, these people, there would be a run on Depends at the CVS.
Wow. That's for sure.
There does seem to be an inverse relationship between the presence of those signs and actual racial diversity in a neighborhood.
Exactly. Yep.
I live.
That's sad to think about. Yeah,
I live in a place where, like, if I go east, the racial demographics go one way. If I go west, they go a different way. And the wider the area, the more of the "in this house we believe" signs. And I don't see a whole lot.
Do you guys remember the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Where the way
which one, the original or the remake?
I didn't know they did a remake of it.
Sidney Poitier.
Apparently it was terrible.
But it has that kind of feel of that. It is. That movie's not quite a parody because it's more serious than a parody, but it has a mocking at its heart of mocking the kind of person who can say all the right things about racism, but really doesn't want anybody of a different race in their family.
Right.
Or it's going to struggle like crazy with that.
If you want a great biting satire of that, Phil Oakes' song "Love Me, I'm a Liberal." He is a much more radical leftist, but I'll quote you one verse from the song. "The people of old Mississippi should all hang their heads in shame. I can't understand how their minds work. What's the matter? Don't they watch Les Crane? But if you ask me to bust my children, I hope the cops take down your name. So love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal." And so it's all about like the kind of performative, I stand on the right side of everything, but don't ask me to actually be inconvenienced or do anything about this.
But I would like to say, in the defense of the liberal, there are many people who are not like that. Who
True.
Like that does seem to be a problem that we have, but it's not the whole story. We shouldn't pretend like
No. I'm critiquing a particular movement without meaning to universalize it. To just say, when you see this kind of performative thing, the question you should be asking is, who benefits from this? Like, are you actually helping the downtrodden in any measurable way? Or is the point of this to tell us how amazing you are?
Yeah, and what makes a good life? Knowing all the proper terminology for every gender issue that has come up, or actually, going out and feeding the hungry or clothing the naked or something like that. I feel like the second problem with the performance of virtue is that we're missing the opportunity to actually be virtuous. Or maybe part of the strategy is to excuse ourselves from going out and being virtuous. I don't know.
Okay, this is a 2020 report, so it might be slightly outdated. But you know the term Latinx?
Oh my gosh, I love that term so much. It's so,
yes, I love it because it
never
doesn't
met
work
a
in
Hispanic,
Spanish at all.
Latino,
Latinx?
Latinx.
Latinx.
Right, that is the best. That's the greatest invention ever. It's just the greatest. It's just like the gift that keeps giving.
Pew Research, about 1 in 4 U.S. Hispanics have heard of Latinx, but just 3% use it. This is a term that liberal white people use to show how in touch they were to Hispanic and Latino sensitivities that Hispanics and Latinos do not overwhelmingly use for themselves. And even worse,
You know why? Because they have a word for it. It's Latino.
Turns
and
out, if you
like,
speak Spanish, you're right.
Like, what's wrong? Like, we're so in love with Spanish-speaking people that we've overcome the use of Spanish and we've now invented new words for them. Like we won't
we're
use
forcing them to change their language to show how much we love them.
Yeah, we love them so much. We need to point out that their language is horrible.
I mean, overwhelmingly, American Indians prefer to be called American Indians or Indians, not Native Americans.
Or
Native Americans
Navajo
is a federal
or
term.
Hopi.
I don't know.
or
I've asked a lot
Iroquois.
of them this question. I get very mixed answers when I ask them.
You see it in the numbers, and certainly American Indian activist groups don't use the term Native American because that's like Bureau of Indian Affairs, all this stuff. Like we'll use Native American in official terminology, and so this is another external name kind of imposed that is not the standard use. So it's one of these places again where people are doing a performative thing where it's all about saying the right words, but the right words as judged by other white liberals, not actually judged by the people being discussed.
In Canada, they say First Nations. And
Yes.
I actually think that's a good one because it is actually a description of Canada. They were the First Nations there.
Right.
Like that works for me. I asked a Navajo woman not long ago, and she said, she kind of shrugged like, I really don't care. Like that was her main thing. But she did say Indigenous Americans, I think. I can't remember now. I asked her, and now I can't remember the answer on the air. But I think she didn't say something that was in my lexicon. It was like, I think it would be good to say this. And I think it was Indigenous Americans.
But not Aboriginals.
Aboriginals out of favor.
Yeah, is it? And do they say it in Australia, Aboriginal?
Oh yeah, in Australia,
Yeah,
sure.
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They use a lot of words we wouldn't use in American English.
Oh yes, they do.
Like half white, or no, what's it called? Flat white.
Flat white.
Flat
yeah,
white.
everybody drinks flat white over
Oh,
there.
I just drank one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a glass of milk.
Yes. It's
warm milk.
Well, we didn't get to witches. We were going to talk about witches, and we didn't get to napping. Let me just ask you this: which would you have preferred to talk about if I had left enough time to get to witches or napping?
Tell me more about napping.
There's some science out about whether you should nap or not.
This science isn't new at all. Can I tell you a quick napping story?
I think it's bad science. I was going to argue against it. Yeah.
No, it's true. Around 2 o'clock, if you can take a short nap, it is good for you.
No, but the article I sent you said, but don't nap for too long because you mess up your whole.
That is true.
Brain.
Oh yeah, no, Rip Van Winkle.
That article is.
Rip Van Winkle is science. Now that's science. I get. Yes, Washington Irving, great
I knew a guy.
scientist.
He moved money around for a living, and he would take a nap every afternoon. This is what he would do. He would sit in a chair and hold a spoon over a plate on the floor, so that as soon as he fell asleep, he would drop the spoon, and the clank would wake him up. He said, "You really only need to fall asleep for a couple seconds."
He sounds like a guy from a Dickens novel. Like, was he in a Dickens?
True
Were you
story.
reading a Dickens novel,
No, true
or was this a
story,
real
true story.
friend? They're not your
Money
friends, you
around.
know. They're not your friend. Ebenezer Scrooge. He's not a real guy. He's not your friend.
That's absolutely true story. No, a little nap
Yeah.
is good, but too long is bad.
This is what.
By the
where-
way, that's not new
This is where I
science.
was going to go with the whole thing. The human body has certain rhythms and needs. Women's bodies different from men's bodies in that regard. One of the problems with modern society is we ride roughshod over those needs. We act like people don't have them, don't need them, and should get rid of them. So I think we should go back to the siesta. I think we need a little nap in the
It's
afternoon.
That Protestant work ethic to blame. I blame the
Hey, can I
Protestants.
just compliment you two on tying together gender difference, Protestantism, siestas, even so we have the multicultural awareness, all of the themes of the last 2 hours brought together once with a nice little Charles Dickens, Washington Irving bow. That was well done, guys.
This is what the flannel
This is
panel
why
does well.
This is why the flannel panel is the panel you need to listen to. If you're going to listen to a panel, make it flannel. That's our new. You know what? That's our new motto. I just came up with our new motto. Joe
amazing.
Heschmeyer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Check, thank you very much.
Have a great Friday, Si.
Well, thank you, Chris. I think it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday?
Navigate Thursday?
You don't know what day this is going to play. All right, that'll do it for us. Whatever day it is, we'll see you tomorrow, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.